Order. Before I call Dr. Luke Evans to move the motion, it will be apparent to everyone that there are a good number of speakers who want to participate. So to give fair warning to all backbench speakers, we are going to have to limit you to about 2.5 minutes, I'm afraid. We'll start doing that informally. If everyone can keep to that, we should be able to get everyone in. If not, we'll have to impose a formal time limit. And I call Dr. Luke Evans to move the motion.
Thank you, Sir Jeremy. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. The poppy stands tall with bended head, the perfect personification of honouring our dead. Every year, one of the most iconic flowers is seen and respected across this nation, and it's down to the work of the Royal British Legion. Today, I'm honoured and humbled to mark the contributions of the RBL to this country in Parliament. And looking on Hansard for the last time the Royal British Legion was a topic for debate, you have to scroll back to 2013. So it's a pleasure to bring this debate to the House now for the 80th anniversary of VE Day, just around the corner. Now, in this speech, I want to talk about the role of the RBL nationally, but more so, I want to reflect on my local branch and my constituency, as telling their story and what they do exemplifies and typifies what is happening up and down the nation to support our veterans and influence our nation's heads and hearts. It was Thornton Wilder who said, "The greatest tribute to the dead is not grief, but gratitude," and the RBL embodies that sentiment perfectly. At this point, I must declare an interest. I have one of the greatest privileges to be, in fact, the president of the Hinckley branch of the Royal British Legion. Yeah. This is particularly fitting as I took it up in 2023, which was the centenary of Hinckley and District's Royal British Legion formation back in 1923. And who was the first president in 1923? It was then the Conservative and Unionist Party member for Bosworth, my predecessor but three, Major Thomas Guy Paget. In 2023, I raised the RBL and the work of local volunteers around Remembrance Sunday in the Chamber and highlighted the particular work of Elaine Ward, who received a medal from the RBL to commemorate her 5 decades of service for fundraising for the Popular Appeal. And I asked the Leader of the House back then if we could have a debate on the volunteers who support the RBL. Well, it's taken some time, but I'm pleased to say we finally secured that debate here today. Now, nationally, I know members here today will be aware of the fantastic contributions the RBL makes to all of our communities, but it would be remiss of me not to talk about some of the great work and the history behind it. The Royal British Legion is the largest armed forces charity in the UK. It was formed in May 1921 to care for those who were suffering from service during the First World War and brought together 4 national organisations of ex-servicemen. Of those who came back from the First World War, 1.75 million suffered some form of disability, and half of those were permanently disabled. Therefore, the Legion had important work to do right from its beginnings. In 1921, the first ever Poppy Appeal was held and raised over £106,000. And it's a proud tradition of ours that this carries on 100 years further in. In 1971, the Queen declared the organisation would be granted royal status and become the Royal British Legion, and the charity now has 180,000 members and 110,000 volunteers. In the past year alone, the RBL has awarded over £18 million worth in grant, helping thousands of veterans and families through the cost of living crisis. They've provided expert financial guidance, legal representation and essential aid during hardship, securing £39 million in war pension awards. But beyond financial support, the RBL is a lifeline for well-being. The Battleback Centre in Shropshire has empowered hundreds of veterans through recovery programmes, while their 6 care homes, including special dementia services, ensure dignity and comfort for those who have served. Community is at the heart of their mission. Whether it's through independent living services, telephone buddies for the lonely, or the 96 global branches supporting service personnel worldwide, the RBL is always there. Their unwavering commitment reminds us we owe our veterans more than gratitude, we owe them action. Possibly the greatest action the RBL facilitate is that of a nation remembering. Remembrance is the active process of keeping the past alive in our present. This is so important now more than ever that we continue to educate the next generation about the First and Second World Wars and the incredible sacrifices made by so many to ensure our freedoms today. Why? As the last surviving veterans of the Second World War becoming fewer and fewer, obviously it was only a few weeks ago the last surviving Battle of Britain pilot, John Paddy Hemingway, passed away. We must not let that knowledge of the impact of war fade away. We must remind future generations, as the most famous quote says, lest we forget. Through the Royal... Of course.
Thank the honourable member for giving me and congratulate him on securing the debate. Just on the issue that he's touching on now, would he agree with me that it is imperative at this stage, as that generation is dying off, unfortunately, that the younger generation, particularly in schools, are told of that immense sacrifice that they made and the freedoms that we all owe for people like those?
The honourable member is absolutely spot on. It's pivotal to making sure that story is continued all the way through, not only in our nation, but across the world as well. And it leads me nicely onto my point, because through the Royal British Legion Education Programme, bringing stories from the Second World War into classrooms with educational resources and digital capsules of VE Day stories under creation, the RBL is honouring the sacrifices of those before us while ensuring their legacy shapes our future today. Of course, it's not just world wars that we need to continue to remember, but also more recent conflicts: Korea, Falklands, Northern Ireland, Bosnia and Kosovo, and the Gulf deployments in places like Iraq and, of course, Afghanistan. Nationally, the RBL's impact is undeniable, distinct, poignant, respectful, and powerful. But an organisation is only as strong as the sum of its parts, so I turn to the Royal British Legion branches in Hinckley and Bosworth, and I'm privileged to have the following branches in my constituency: Barwell Nell Shilton, Burbage, Market Bosworth, Ashby de la Zouch, and Ibstock. The Hinckley branch is branch number 96, that being the 96th Legion ever to be raised since the British Legion formed in 1921. And I know the branch is continually active and proactive today and is managed by some fantastic volunteers, not least Chairman Lloyd Bagshaw, who's actually sat in the public gallery today. Yeah. He's ably supported by Lee Bushell, the Vice Chair, Mick Nolan, the Treasurer, Keir Brown, the Secretary, Ian Walker and Troy Phillips, who are both standard bearers, Dave England, the Parade Marshal, Lou Stooks, Deputy Parade Marshal, and the aforementioned Elaine Ward as the Poppy Appeal Organiser. Now, the Hinckley branch has organised numerous public events to commemorate key anniversaries from the Falklands, Korea and D-Day. A key focus of their three-year plan is tackling social isolation, which affects veterans of all ages and is often linked to mental health concerns. Their initiatives include visiting care homes with accessible activities, participation in veteran coffee mornings and breakfasts, teaching in schools, providing support to bereaved families. And families may request their standard bearers to attend services and pay homage to the fallen and past veterans. I can only imagine what this must mean to the families affected, and it's a powerful demonstration of the community spirit amongst the armed forces for those families. Fundraising remains vital, and their popular appeal consistently raises over £40,000 annually, a significant total that shows the perpetual gratitude and benevolent support of the district's community. In summing up the contributions of my local RBL branch, I'd like to quote Lloyd's words. The fundamental keystone to the foundation of these successfuls falls at the feet of the small cohort of passionate volunteers that assist the branch in all its activities. Primarily during the Poppy Appeal period each year, many of those volunteers fundraise are not even Legion members. They merely have a desire and a wish to support the appeal. Without such support and enthusiasm from the community, the branch and indeed the Legion as an organisation could not survive. The breadth of my gratitude and sincere thanks of those men and women have no limit. In speaking to Lloyd, he did actually ask me to single out one particular member, Mr. Ian Walker, who he describes as having a passion and commitment to the branch that goes above and beyond. Therefore, I'd like to take this opportunity to do exactly that. Now, Chair, it's said that the superior man is modest in his speech, but exceeds in his actions, and none more so than the current chairman of Hinckley branch, Lloyd Bagshaw. Other members of the branch tell me, typically of Lloyd, he has admitted what all consider to be a primary nomination himself. You see, several years ago, the branch was facing an uncertain future. Membership had dwindled, activities were scarce, and survival was in doubt. Then 7 years ago, Lloyd joined and saw not the challenges but potential. Without hesitation, he took action. With over 40 years of service in the Royal British Legion, Lloyd was elected chairman unopposed, a testament to the trust placed in him. From day one, he worked tirelessly to restore connections, rebuild relationships, and revitalise the branch. His efforts strengthened ties with the Royal Navy Association, St Mary's Church, and the local council, creating a support network that transformed the organisation. Today, the branch is thriving. Events are planned, awareness is high, and the community presence is firmly established, all thanks to Lloyd's leadership. His dedication even uncovered a forgotten milestone, the branch's centenary, in 2023. But most telling of all, membership has more than doubled under his stewardship, now proudly standing at 87. In the words of one branch member, simply put, we're all here today due to his hard work, selflessness, commitment and enthusiasm. Now finally turning to the...
Give way on that point. I thank the honourable member for giving way and for securing this debate. And he's absolutely right that, that branches are the heart of the Royal British Legion, but so are the clubs. I wonder whether he'd agree with me that given a number of clubs in my constituency, especially the Hindhead Club in Beacon Hill, is under significant financial pressure due to increasing costs, not least, I'm afraid, because the Royal British Legion is the landlord and is trying to put up their rent. Would he agree with me that it would be great if the Royal British Legion nationally and the government can come together to preserve the clubs as well as the branches?
Well, thank you. And I think it's this service and contribution that happens in the community that's really important. And it's a role that an MP can play, and he's doubtfully doing that, to pull everyone together to have these discussions to see that a solution can be found. Because at the end of the day, it is that veteran support that we all crave in our constituencies. And I'm pleased to see him here championing his club today. Turning to the national future and support for our veterans, I was pleased and proud that the last government's support for veterans, and as a brief overview, the Office for Veterans Affairs was set up in 2019, and the former Prime Minister appointed a Minister for Veterans Affairs into his cabinet to report to him directly, with the aim of taking the challenges faced directly by our nation's veterans. Further work by the previous government included a Veterans Strategy Action Plan, Trauma Network and Health Innovation Fund. Therefore, it would be great to hear from the Minister today what steps the current government is taking to build on the progress made by the previous government and support the Legion's current priorities, namely, number one, strengthening the Armed Forces Covenant duty to include UK and devolved governments and cover all policy matters. Number two, ensuring all public bodies are asking individuals where they are immediately family members have served in armed forces. Number three, ensuring the military compensation is never treated as an income source by means test for welfare benefit. Number four, introducing a national protocol to provide consistent access to public services for armed forces families and increase SEND support for service children. And number five, removing barriers for families of non-UK service personnel to stay in the UK, waiving fees for indefinite leave to remain and the minimum income requirement. Perhaps the Minister could provide some reflections on these issues, as the RBL have raised them specifically. Now, Sir Jeremy, time is short, this speech is long, and in trying to close this debate, I thought it apt simply to reflect on what happens on the 11th day, on the 11th month, and the 11th hour, and say, there are times when simply no words can do justice. Silence is the only response that speaks the loudest. Felt, but not forgotten.
Yeah. Very grateful to the honourable member. Can I remind everyone that they should continue to stand if they wish to contribute, and to remind everyone, if you can stick to 2.5 minutes, we will try and get everybody in. The question is that this House has considered the contribution of the Royal British Legion. Will Stone.
Thank you, the honourable member from PP in Bosworth for his thoughtful contribution. It was really nice. I also want to put on record my thanks to my local branch in Lower Stratton, the Royal British Legion there, and pallbearer Jeff. He's an amazing guy. I wanted to talk more about the why the British Legion is important as opposed to what they do. So I am a proud veteran, an ex-Armed Forces member of the 1st Battalion, the Rifles, and one of the things I think really comes to mind for me of what the Royal British Legion do is they build that sense of community. I'm not saying people don't understand it unless they've been in the military, but it is a job which is like no other, where it really becomes part of you. And one of the saddest days of my life was when I was leaving, driving out of Beachley Barracks, knowing I wasn't going to have that sense of community, that sense of belonging again. It was really quite emotional. And something which I didn't really pick up until I went and visited my local branch was the fact that you don't necessarily have that community, you don't have that outreach where you can go and talk to other veterans. And I think that's something that the Royal British Legion do so fantastically, because we see that people leave the armed forces, they lose sense of purpose, they lose their ability, their person, their identity, and it's so important that they have a place where they can gather together. And I know I'm a bit short on time actually, so I'm going to have to cut this down slightly, but I really want to say thank you to all of the people out there that are putting this together, and they are out day in, day out, looking after the veterans, raising money, offering support with housing, just having a friendly ear for people to talk to. So once again, thank you to everyone in the Royal British Legion for all you do, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what the Minister has to say, because I know he is working so hard on championing veterans, and I can't think of anyone better place to be doing that, to be honest, because he gets it. So thank you for all being here. I look forward to hearing your contributions.
Alex Easton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your chairmanship. Today we gather to recognise an organisation that exemplifies the values of service, sacrifice and solidarity, principles that are timeless, yet often overlooked in our fast-paced world. The Royal British Legion stands as a testimony to these principles, and I wholeheartedly endorse their mission and work. We owe a profound debt of gratitude to the men and women of our British Armed Forces, who courageously step forward towards danger while others step away. Providing them with essential assistance is not merely our duty, it should be our priority. The transition to civilian life poses significant challenges, impacting physically on their health, mental well-being and career prospects. The Royal British Legion officers critically support to address these challenges, honouring the dignity and respect that our British heroes rightfully deserve. Sadly, too many families face the void left by the ultimate sacrifice, and many support loved ones dealing with lifelong physical and mental health traumas. It is our solemn duty to remember, and the British Legion ensures that this duty is fulfilled. From the poppy appeals to war memorials and remembrance events, they safeguard our promise that these sacrifices will not be forgotten. Yet there is more that we can do. It is imperative that we strengthen the Armed Forces Covenant, ensuring that all devolved governments of the United Kingdom are united in support. Public bodies must maintain comprehensive records of those who have served and their families to adequately address their needs. Military compensation should rightly be exempt from means testing for welfare benefits. We need a UK-wide protocol to ensure veterans have proper access to public services and that their children receive appropriate special needs and disability support. Additionally, all obstacles should be removed for non-UK service personnel to stay in the UK, including waiving fees for indefinite leave to remain and minimum income requirements. These should be entitlements, not merely goals. We stand with the Royal British Legion in striving for this. It's with a bit of sadness that I raised today that the British Legion Hall in Bangor, which is now a city, is due to close due to financial pressures. And I was wondering if government could look into some ways that they could help with British Legion halls in the future going forward. Thank you.
Terry Jeremy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jeremy, and thank you, Honourable Member, for securing this debate today. And I also pay tribute to the RBL volunteers and staff across the country. They help support wherever and whenever it is needed, including in my own South West Norfolk constituency. Every year we see them in our supermarkets and on our streets selling millions of poppies, not only to raise money but also to provide an opportunity for us all to come together and pay tribute to those that fought for our freedoms and in many cases gave the ultimate sacrifice. And I was very proud last October to join with the collection in my local supermarket, and I look forward to doing so again later this year. What struck me last year was how many people were coming up and speaking with myself and the team about their family member or their friend or their neighbour. They wanted to talk about their service and, in many cases, their loss.
and the RBL gave them that opportunity. I've taken part in numerous charity collections in the past. Never have I felt so many people, yes, give money, but linger and want to talk, want to engage. And it was a wonderful experience, yes, talking about loss and grief, but very much talking about pride. And for anyone who's not done it, I would very much encourage taking part in an RBL collection. It's a wonderful experience. The Thetford branch of the RBL in my constituency was one of the first to be constituted in the whole of the UK back in 1921. And as Mayor of Thetford in 2016, I was very proud to oversee the rededication of the standards at that time and support other local RBL activities. Sadly, like so many organisations, our local RBL in Thetford has fallen on tougher times with a limited number of volunteers. But that support is as crucial now as it ever was. And I look forward to continuing to support the RBL in my new role as a Member of Parliament. It's necessary because in South West Norfolk, like other constituencies, we have many military families, including those based at RAF Marham and Feltwell, but also nearby Honington, Mildenhall and Lakenheath. I look forward to supporting the RBL in the years to come so that they can continue their crucial work.
For Hinckley and Bosworth for his commitment to our veterans and the armed forces, and what a real pleasure to see the Minister in this place. The Honourable and gallant member is well known for his service in uniform, but also for his commitment to the veterans, and we thank him for that. We look very much forward to his contribution later. The Royal British Legion in Northern Ireland may be small in a population of 1.9 million, but the heart of the veterans and the fundraisers is massive. That's why the small membership in Northern Ireland raises more than its share of fundraising in the United Kingdom by the British Legion. Some £40 million is raised. Northern Ireland raises 1.3 million. So in proportion to our size, we, by a large percentage, give more to the British Army, the Navy and the Royal Air Force through the British Legion and through the Poppy Appeal than most other areas of the United Kingdom. The Royal British Legion describes itself as being part of the national network looking for the armed forces community. It provides recovery, rehabilitation services, expert advice and guidance to service personnel and their families, as well as campaigning to improve the lives of everyone in the armed forces community and make sure their voice is heard. I should have declared an interest. I'm a member of the Royal British Legion Malile branch. I'm also served in the Ulster Defence Regiment in the Royal Artillery for some 14.5 years as a part-time member. The Royal British Legion clubs in Cumber and Newtownards and Ballywalter and Malile are very much used by society and community groups and residents' association to carry out training and host events. It's a place of solace, it's a place of understanding, and it's a place of signposting to help and support. It is essential that the Legion continues to operate in communities throughout the United Kingdom, and to do this they need more than government thanks, they need support. Yeah. The British Legion have issued in their statement in Belfast just shortly said the Legion is under immense pressure to help veterans with their mental health, and cited the statistic that over the past 3 years the Legion have seen a 44% increase in veterans presenting with complex and mental health needs. So I know factually it's a real and valid concern. Whilst we have few World War veterans in the Grey Abbey branch that I was in, they're all away now. There's only myself left now. I've transferred to the Malile branch. We have veterans from the Falklands, the Balkans, Afghanistan, Iraq, Northern Ireland with a 30-year terrorist campaign. So they all deserve our thanks and our respect. But more importantly, all are deserving of our support. And this must begin with an enhancement of help from the government as we acknowledge the toll on mental health that service have proven to take. It is no longer a taboo subject, and we're happy to talk about it. It follows that we are happy to act on it. And I know today, when the Minister replies, none of us in this room today will be found wanting. Congratulate him. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Joe Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Pleasure to serve on your chairship as always. Can I commend the Honourable Member for securing this incredibly important debate. I'll keep my remarks fairly short, as I know a lot of members want to get in to speak. I want to begin by extending my sincere gratitude to the local branches in my constituency, the Royal British Legion, who do such great work across the constituency. That's including Warken District Branch, Corbridge and Dillington-Ponteland District Branch. As a young member of the Cubs, I was privileged to carry the banner at the memorial service in Hexham on Remembrance Day. It's one of those moments that has stuck with me, and the contribution of all the organisations that take part in commemoration of those who served really do define the constituencies across this country, and define in particular many in the North East. I will happily, yes.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way, and as he has mentioned standard bearers, I just want to take a moment to recognise Fergus Osborne of Gisborough RBL, who has carried the standard in Gisborough and the surrounding areas for over 30 years. So I thank him for the work he is doing. And does my honourable friend agree that those who have served across our region deserve that kind of recognition?
Thank my old friend, and I'm sure that he did a far better of carrying anything than I did when I was a slightly incompetent child. I was really privileged last month, actually. I just want to bring in the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, another organisation that does really important work commemorating those who died in service to the country. I went to visit St Andrew's Cemetery in the west of Hexham, and was really privileged to go around seeing all of seeing the graves and hearing the stories, not just of those who were from Hexham, who'd grown up in the community and who'd sadly passed away, but including some members of the Free Polish Forces who had been treated at Hexham Hospital during the Second World War as they aided the fight against fascism. I will bring my remarks to a swift and undoubtless welcome end, but before I finish, I just want to put on record my thanks, not just to the organisations mentioned, but to the Prado Armed Forces and Veterans Breakfast Club, to the Hexham Armed Forces and Breakfast Club, to Northumberland SSFAA, and to Forward Assist, many other local routes throughout the community. And I know that many of the members here with a military background will be familiar with the Osborne Ranges in my constituency. I'm told not just for the stellar weather and the beautiful surroundings, but for the place it will hold in many of their hearts. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Al Pinkerton.
Thank you, Sir Jeremy. It's a privilege to speak under your chairmanship today, and can I congratulate the Honourable Member for Hinckley and Bosworth for securing this important debate. In my constituency of Surrey Heath, the local Royal British Legion branches of Camberley, Chobham, Normandy, Purbright and Windlesham have long played a critical role in supporting our community, which has a deep-rooted historical connection to our armed forces. I've personally had the privilege of visiting and taking part in some wonderful events, including remembrance services, members' receptions and poppy appeal concerts, all organised by these local RBL branches. But I would like to pay particular tribute to some of the people who make all of that work possible. Rona and Michael McAuliffe, Mike Sheard, Tim Beck, Pat Tedder, Patrick Mattei, Peter Welford are just some of the handful of the dedicated individuals across those local branches in my constituency who have made remarkable differences to people's lives. But the Royal British Legion's legacy isn't just defined by events and by charity efforts, but by the lives that it transforms. One of my constituents, who I will refer to only as Tim, that's not his real name, served multiple tours of Iraq and Afghanistan, as well as undertaking numerous overseas training exercises with the British Army. Much of his service was spent in Germany, where he supported personnel and their families. But like so many who serve, Tim's challenges didn't end when he left the military. He was physically injured during his service in Iraq and was later diagnosed with complex PTSD. And thanks to the Royal British Legion, Tim didn't have to face those physical or mental challenges alone. Through the Personal Recovery Centre in Senelager in Germany and the Battleback Centre in Shropshire, both sponsored by the Royal British Legion, Tim was given the support he needed to start rebuilding his life. And today, Tim is now a key member of the recently re-established Camberley branch of the Royal British Legion, paying forward the help that he once received. And Tim, of course, is just one of many millions whose lives have been changed and saved by the RBL.
Will you give way?
I will give way.
Thank my friend for giving way. He's making a strong speech. I'm very proud to represent Glastonbury and Somerton, in which RNAS Yeovilton is based. And the constituency is home to many veterans and serving personnel, with over 11% of households being home to at least one veteran, with many charities supporting our veterans, charities like the RBL, Martok, being formed in 1921 rather. But we also have Service Dogs UK and other organisations such as Got Your Six, who are all working to support our veterans. So does the Honourable Member agree with me that there should be closer collaboration between government and charity supporting our veterans to ensure no veteran is left behind?
I think my honourable friend makes a very powerful case to more closely coordinate those different organisations and to establish those connections with government. And I think everybody would benefit as a consequence of that. The RBL's work, of course, extends far beyond bespoke care and support that they provide to wounded servicemen and women. Their advocacy work, as we have already heard mentioned, is is supporting extraordinary numbers of military families and to ensure that their needs are properly met, from access to GP services to supporting children with special educational needs. The RBL has a proud history and a proud legacy spanning 104 years. It's as relevant today as it was in 1921. And very tragically, with the spectre of war and conflict on the horizon again, I, of course, hope that it has a long and prosperous future.
David Pinto-Dushinsky.
Thank you, Sir Jeremy. Pleasure to serve under the chairmanship. It is our sacred duty to make sure we never forget the brave men and women who served and gave their lives for our freedom. For over 100 years, the Royal British Legion has done fantastic work, not just to continue bearing the torch of remembrance, but to ensure our veterans and their families are given the support they need. They are the beating heart of the network that looks after our armed forces community. We all have contact with the Royal British Legion each year, as we buy and proudly wear our poppy. But many people might not realise that this is just a fraction of the service they provide. They are the UK's largest armed forces charity with 180,000 members, 110,000 volunteers and a network of partners and charities. They provide recovery and rehabilitation service and expert advice and guidance to service personnel and their families, as well as campaigning day in, day out to improve the lives of everyone in the armed forces community and make sure their voice is heard. In my community, I have repeatedly had the great honour of joining the volunteers of the Edgware branch of the Royal British Legion. Visitors to the Broadwalk Shopping Centre all know the hard work they do, giving up their free time to support our servicemen and women. These volunteers represent the spirit of selflessness that we should all aspire to and that the Royal British Legion embodies, with the obligation we all share to our armed forces who sacrifice so much for us. The work they do to support veterans and their families in my constituency cannot be underestimated. There are so many amazing local volunteers who deserve our recognition. Unfortunately, too many to name today. But there is one person I do want to recognise. Our local branch chair, Maxine Webber, does so much for our community. She is the very living embodiment of the sense of duty, community spirit, energy and pride that the Royal British Legion stands for. It is right that we have taken time in our parliamentary schedule to give our thanks to the Royal British Legion and everyone who volunteers for them. And in fact, I think it is especially fitting that we are doing so here on a warm spring afternoon, when November and the prospect of next buying and wearing our poppies and joining our Remembrance Day commemorations in a cold winter's morning feels so far away. Because the Royal British Legion works hard all year around. They represent all that is great about our armed forces and about Britain, and that work does not stop nor end on November 11th. And so it is right that we should think of them and pay our thanks and support them as best we can all year round. Thank you so much.
Richard Ford.
Mid and East Devon has a very strong veteran community, while the national average for people who've served is 3.8%. In Honiton and Sidmouth, there are 4,616 households with at least one veteran. That represents 6.3% of the population. And it speaks volumes about Devon's connection to the armed forces and the duty we all feel to support those who've served. Not just those who've served, but those who are families of those who've served, because often it is the families that sort of bring the service person out of the armed forces, but it's then the families who are supported by the Royal British Legion when the veteran is looking for a place in society in which they can belong. Yes, I will.
The duty of service is so often earned by the whole family of service personnel, parents and partners and children who sacrifice in their support of those who serve their country, who are fearful for them, who miss time and miss memories. So would my honourable friend agree that the work of the British Legion and what they do to support families is so vital and needs also to be recognised?
Absolutely, and I would add also that the Royal British Legion is fantastic at bringing in volunteers, people who've not served, but people who, for whom the Royal British Legion depends on. We've got some really strong local branches in Columpton, Honiton, Kilmington, Sidmouth, Sidbury and Sidford, Beer and Seaton, all fantastic examples of commitment, not just from veterans, but from people who haven't served as well. And the Westminster branch, for example, has won significant awards, the Crediton Cup, the National RBL Award of the Lister Trophy, and what was striking last 11th of November was to see how they encourage the stories of veterans to be passed on to children in the town and in the community that wouldn't otherwise happen. If I take Honiton branch, David Rickard was the winner of the prestigious RBL 75th Anniversary Cup in February that all of Honiton was very proud of. In Kilmington, the branch has just 120 people as members, despite the village only having 1,000 residents. So we have a thriving RBL in Devon, and I'm massively grateful for all that they do, and I'm grateful to the member for Hinckley and Bosworth for his opportunity to me to thank them.
Dave Roberts.
Thank you, Sir Jeremy. And I say what a pleasure it is to take part in the debate in the Union Chair, and again thank the member for Hinckley and Bosworth for bringing this debate. I rise actually to celebrate the impact that the Royal British Legion has in my constituency, which is primarily through the National Memorial Arboretum. It is a genuinely wonderful place. 150 acres of woodland, more than 420 memorials now. As I walk around this place, I speak to so many people who say that they've been meaning to visit someday. And I really cannot stress how much I would advise people to make someday today.
Will the Honourable Member give way?
Of course.
I thank the Honourable Member for giving way. I was indeed invited to the National Memorial Arboretum for Remembrance Day, as I proudly watched my honourable friend lay a wreath, just as I was proud to lay a wreath on behalf of fallen men and women in my constituency of neighbouring South Derbyshire. As I'm serving on the Armed Forces Parliamentary Scheme at the moment, I am growing in increasing awe for men and women that serve in the forces, including the men and women I get to meet through the Royal British Legion in the Swadlincote District branch, where they raised over £52,000 for the Poppy Appeal last year. They helped commemorate the 80th anniversary of D-Day, and they play a huge role in the local community. So does my honourable friend agree with me that the Royal British Legion plays a significant role in ensuring we never forget the sacrifices made by those who have served?
Thank my honourable friend for that intervention. She is absolutely right that the Royal British Legion do so much through their branches and their clubs. I'm privileged to have a number of branches and indeed 2 clubs still in my constituency, ones that I will support for as long as I can. But if I can return to the National Memorial Arboretum, which is the country's centre of remembrance, and it is a wonderful place, and I will repeat that people should make some day today and get up there if at all possible. I did have the opportunity a couple of weeks ago to show some of my fellow MPs around the site, and every time I go it reminds me that remembrance is not just for November. It's so much more than wearing our poppies. It's about celebrating, reflecting and celebrating the service and sacrifice of so many who've helped make our country what it is today. Last week I also hosted an event in Parliament with the UK Police Memorial Trust, because as well as celebrating our armed services, the Arboretum is also home to memorials to our emergency services and indeed anybody who has committed that service and sacrifice. The Police Memorial opened almost 4 years ago. It pays tribute to officers who've laid down their lives keeping their communities safe. That trust has just launched a new education programme, and I would invite all members to flag that to their schools, as I already have, because remembrance isn't just for that one purpose. It is all year round, and it should be anybody who's committed that service and sacrifice. Finally, if I may, in the time I have remaining, we are about to come to the 80th anniversary of victory in Europe and victory over Japan. I'd particularly like to thank the Department for Culture, Media and Sports for supporting the Royal British Legion in leading services at the Arboretum to mark those dates. Britain's victory in the Second World War secured peace on our shores, but in an ever more dangerous world, we should never take peace for granted. And in ever more dangerous times, we have much to learn from our Second World War veterans. I would be delighted to join them to mark VJ Day at the National Memorial Arboretum, and I wonder if the Minister might be able to confirm which Minister might be joining us for the day. Thank you.
Thank you. Lincoln Job.
Jeremy, it's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, and I congratulate my friend, the member for Hinckley and Bosworth, on securing this debate.
Hear, hear.
In my Spelthorne constituency, we have 2,500 veterans, and I want to talk about one of them. Councillor Alderman Robin Sider, British Empire Medal. He joined the army as a private soldier and left 40 years later as a major. He then, like so many military veterans, still felt imbued with the desire to do public service, that he became Spelthorne's longest-serving councillor and twice mayor. And given the reorganisation of local government, that's a record that will never be beaten. It was the honour of my life last Friday to be a pallbearer at his funeral. And I remembered a particular story about Robin. Last November, I joined him for his stint collecting for the Royal British Legion outside the Sainsbury's in Shepperton High Street. There had been an innovation last year, which was the presence of a QR code. Robin was old school, if nothing else, and he rather liked the bragging rights that came with having collected up to £400 in his bucket. And he didn't know, if people used the QR reader, how much money, and therefore he couldn't brag about it. I had to rush away and run an errand for about 20 minutes, and I came back and saw that the QR code had mysteriously had on it a poppy wreath placed over it, and as a result, his bucket overflowing. I did just want to pay tribute to the work of the Royal British Legion and all of its volunteers. I am absolutely inundated with choice as to where I enjoy Remembrance Sunday, and equally I'm impressed with all of the schools in Spelthorne and the way in which they continue to keep the flame alive with our children. It would be remiss of me not to mention the VE Day celebrations on the 8th of May, because I know the Royal British Legion are still out there trying to find every last veteran who was around on VE Day to join them for those celebrations. And so I would urge anyone watching this so to do. And with that, Sir Jeremy, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Richard Baker.
Thank you, Sir Jeremy. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. But can I also begin by congratulating the member for Hinckley and Bosworth on securing this important debate. Representing a Scottish constituency, I'll focus my remarks on the work of Poppy Scotland, which is vital for 4,000 veterans living in Glenrothes and Mid-Fife. And the sizeable veterans community in Fife is testament to the strong and proud connections the kingdom has to the famous Black Watch Regiment. And Fife is home to nearly 10% of Scotland's 175,000-strong veterans population. And we know how many veterans there are in Scotland and their distinct needs as a group within our society, thanks to Poppy Scotland and their successful Count Them In campaign ahead of the Scottish census in 2022. And that's just one example of Poppy Scotland's effective advocacy and support for the veterans community. I was privileged to work alongside colleagues in Poppy Scotland when I worked for the charity Sight Scotland Veterans, which supports veterans who are blind and partially sighted. And from this experience, I learned just how invaluable the work of Poppy Scotland is for our veterans, ranging from advice services, support for veterans facing financial difficulties, advice and aids for those with mobility problems, as well as housing and mental health support. And Poppy Scotland also led the Unforgotten Forces Consortium in Scotland, which brought together veterans charities successfully collaborating to tackle the loneliness and isolation which is too often experienced by our veterans. Every day, the Royal British Legion, Poppy Scotland, and so many veterans charities throughout the United Kingdom provide fantastic support to our veterans community. But they have rightly challenged us as a country to do better by our responsibility to our armed forces and veterans community. And I very much, therefore, support the bill for our Armed Forces Commission. It has been an important and successful role in Scotland. I think there's much to learn from the work of the Commissioner there. But I do think we can go further as well. And I agree very much with what the Royal British Legion has said around ensuring that the Armed Forces Covenant is a duty not just for local authorities, but for central government and also for the devolved administrations. And I think also we could do more to provide guidance for local authorities to ensure they know that what in practice it looks like to work alongside our veterans charities to ensure that our veterans are properly supported and fully included in our communities, and that we as a nation stand up to our duties and our role to ensure we meet our responsibilities as a nation to our armed forces personnel and to our veterans.
Thank you. Peter Fortune.
Thank you, Sir Jeremy. It's a pleasure to serve on your chairmanship, and I thank my honourable friend for securing the debate. I have no doubt that the Royal British Legion is one of the most nationally significant charities in Britain today. And that's not solely because of the Legion's Poppy Appeal, which has raised millions upon millions of pounds to support the armed forces communities since 1921. Nor just because the Legion leads our nation in remembrance each year in a moment of national unity with deeply shared gratitude, sorrow and loss that each generation continues. But because of the Legion's invaluable and irreplaceable support for British servicemen and women, veterans and their families. Established in the aftermath of the First World War, the Legion helped returning soldiers find housing and work. In the century since, the Legion's services to veterans have been a lifeline, and it has grown to support the entire armed forces community. And whilst I only served briefly, I know from friends who continued in the armed forces and veterans in my community that the Legion has made an enormous difference in their lives. But as we all know, the Royal British Legion is more than a national charity. It's local too, long embedded in the communities across the country, including in my Bromley and Biggin Hill constituency. The Hayes Royal British Legion branch, established over 90 years ago, is a cornerstone of the local community. And while many membership organisations struggle, it boasts 900 members. Together, they raise thousands of pounds to support serving and ex-serving members of the British Armed Forces and their families. I commend the work of their president, Joe Charleston, and all the wonderful volunteers such as Ollie Pereira and Dennis Burrows. And while branches like Hayes have grown to include those who have not served, they still provide a crucial social hub for Bromley's veterans. Over 6,600 veterans live in the London Borough of Bromley, more than in any other corner of London. And the Hayes Royal British Legion branch offers Bromley's veterans a place of camaraderie every month. I look forward to joining the branch next month for the Beacon service, which they are organising to commemorate VE Day, a moment to remember those who made the ultimate sacrifice in the Second World War. And in a powerful initiative, the Hayes branch will also ask residents living in a home that once belonged to a fallen hero to display a Remembrance Tommy sign in their garden, bearing the name of the previous owner who never returned, so that we will always remember them.
Stevia.
It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, Sir Jeremy. And as someone who has spoken many times in the House about the importance of supporting those who served in our armed forces, I warmly congratulate the Honourable Member for Hinckley and Bosworth for securing this very important debate today. The Royal British Legion do so much behind the scenes to support our veterans, and locally I'm proud to say that we have a long-standing local branch of the Royal British Legion, the Mansfield branch, which was first established on October the 9th, 1921. And of course, as the local Member of Parliament, I do everything I can to support the work of the RBL locally because, Mr Chairman, it is so important that we all do everything that we can to ensure that their activities continue in every one of our constituencies. That is the reason, Mr Chairman, I was very disappointed to hear recently that our Armed Forces Day commemorations that usually take place each year in Mansfield have been cancelled. This commemoration, I must say, is enjoyed by families right across the constituency, including my own, many of whom have written to me to express their disappointment. And I hope, therefore, that the local parties to this event, including Mansfield District Council and the Mansfield Business Improvement District, will get together and resolve that matter without delay, to the satisfaction of the RBL, who have written to me to express their disappointment, and of course many of my constituents. Mr Chairman, it's important, of course, that we all play our part to support our armed forces personnel, not just through the RBL, but through all the incredible charities and organisations that support our veteran communities. Yes.
I thank my honourable friend because right honourable members have rightly raised in today's debate the invaluable work of their Royal British Legion local branches, and I too would like to extol the virtues of RBL Sippenham Slough, but in particular Berkshire Poppy Appeal, who undertake exceptional work within Slough. Most recently, I welcomed the RBL Director General to give evidence to our Defence Committee so that we could learn more about their national work. But does my honourable friend agree that because of the amazing work that RBL does, it is in fact a lifeline for many of our serving members and veterans and their families, and they therefore deserve our recognition and support?
Well, thank you for the intervention, and I couldn't agree more. And certainly in my own constituency, I see many of those things that the RBL do behind the scenes, help for those living at home, assisting with personal casework issues, providing grants, ensuring veterans are getting the appropriate war pensions that they're entitled to, and so forth. And so it is a very important lifeline, and I would certainly agree with the honourable member on that point. And so given that I think many of us and all of us believe that the RBL do great work in our communities, I certainly promise that for as long as I am the Member of Parliament for Mansfield, I'll do everything that I can to ensure that in my constituency we support the RBL and we never forget.
May I commend the honourable member for Hinckley and Bosworth for securing this important debate and for his work as President of the Hinckley branch of the Royal British Legion. I too am a member of the Royal British Legion, and I've enjoyed many visits to local branches, including my local Brampton branch's monthly naffy break, but we also host Huntingdon District, Sawtry District and Kimbolton too in my constituency. Huntingdon is home to a higher proportion of veterans than most areas in the country, and therefore the work of the RBL is extremely valued, not just in commemorating the service of those who have sacrificed their lives for our country, but also in the support that they provide for our veterans every single day. Every year I take part in the London Poppy Appeal, which sees over 1,000 uniformed personnel from the Royal Navy, British Army and Royal Air Force, along with an additional 1,000 veterans, volunteers and supporters, raise over £1 million for the vital work of the Legion. Last November, it was an honour to stand alongside my old regimental colleagues from the Duke of Wellington's Regiment and the Royal Yorkshire Regiment, selling poppies and reminiscing about our time served together, as well as those who did not return. As a veteran myself, I know only too well the support that is needed and the crucial role that the RBL play. I know I speak on behalf of my fellow veterans, and indeed those still serving, that this focus on our armed forces community makes us feel appreciated and valued. It is, however, important to reiterate the work of the RBL is not limited to just selling poppies. The RBL offer lifelong support to both serving and ex-serving personnel and their families, starting from day one of service and continuing after they leave. Their assistance includes expert advice, recovery, rehabilitation and help with transitioning to civilian life. Where they can't provide direct support, their extensive network ensures they can connect them with someone who can, meaning every veteran is cared for. I will give back.
The Honourable and Gallant Member for giving way. Like him, I have a constituency with very many members of the armed forces. 1 in 20 members of my constituency have served in the armed forces. He talks of the services the RBL offer. Would he agree with me that members of the armed forces have developed very valuable skills, and join me in commending the Royal British Legion for the support that they give helping members of the armed forces into employment in civilian life?
I would wholeheartedly agree with the Honourable Member. I think it's so important that those vital skills that the armed forces personnel develop during our time in service are transitioned into the civilian workforce. I know that there are many civilian employers who would welcome a veteran with the skills that they bring, the self-discipline, the self-starting sort of motivation as well. And I know that I had help from various organisations when I transitioned out to the armed forces, and it is a very much needed piece of support, that wraparound care that people give. Latterly, the RBL has also campaigned on behalf of veterans, successfully campaigning for Commonwealth veterans indefinite leave to remain fees to be waived. And I gently nudged the Minister regarding expanding the scope of this to their dependents, which I know is on his to-do list. In closing, I would like to thank all those who work tirelessly to keep the Royal British Legion in the forefront of our minds, commemorating those who have made the ultimate sacrifice via the Poppy Appeal, advocating for our veterans, being the glue that binds together much of our veterans community. Without them, being a veteran would be much more challenging.
Ryan Leishman.
Thank you very much, Sir Jeremy. It is an honour to serve under your chairship today, and also my thanks go to the Honourable Member for Hinckley and Bosworth for securing this debate today. The financial, social and emotional support the Royal British Legion has provided veterans for over a century has been quite remarkable. The camaraderie that veterans have and the shared bond of looking after each other is something that I, even though I have never served in the military, can recognise, admire and respect. As an MP, I see the same traits in organisations and charities within my constituency. Times have been incredibly hard this last decade and a half, and rallying around each other has kept people and communities going. And in the wee county veterans of Clackmannanshire, there is a group that show the very best of both the veterans and the wider local community. It has been my honour to attend their meetings, to share a Christmas dinner in their company and to represent them here in this place. Sir Jeremy, I would like to speak on the impact of a recent decision made by RBL to withdraw the Armed Services Advice Project, or ASAP. ASAP was established in 2010 and has given assistance to more than 21,500 Scottish veterans. In its 14 years, the scheme helped veterans access over £20 million worth in benefits and compensation. And for many, ASAP's intervention alleviated or stopped them from descending into poverty. As well as saving veterans from destitution, the service also saved lives. In collaboration with the Wee County Veterans and RBLS Grangemouth, ASAP coordinators like Ali Gemmell dealt with struggles that many veterans were wrestling with. Isolation, homelessness, adapting to civilian life, grinding penury and suicidal thoughts were commonplace in the daily conversations Ali would have. So, Sir Jeremy, RBL axing the scheme was a mistake. For ASAP and the life-saving individual relationships it created have been replaced by a call centre service that will have to help veterans who are in extreme distress. RBL called it remodelling the service, but what that really meant was cuts. So I'd appreciate if the Minister could engage with RBL regarding potential reinstatement of ASAP, because our veterans deserve much better than being victims of decisions that leave them more vulnerable.
Robin Swan.
Pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. And can I thank the honourable member for Hinckley and Bosworth for bringing forward this debate, because it's indeed an honour to speak here today about the invaluable contributions of the Royal British Legion, an organisation that has tirelessly supported veterans, serving personnel and their families for over a century. Today, Sir Jeremy, I want to highlight three specific areas where the Legion's impact has been profound. Firstly, in Northern Ireland, where the Royal British Legion has played a critical role in supporting veterans and their families, particularly those affected by the Troubles, because our region's unique history means that many veterans have faced significant challenges, including that post-service adjustment, mental health struggles and indeed financial hardship. And today's date is actually poignant, as being the 1st of April, being the anniversary of the formation of the Ulster Defence Regiment, formed in 1970, or indeed 1900, the 1st of April, which saw the formation of the Irish Guards. Secondly, the Royal British Legion Republic of Ireland, which holds a special place in the history of the British Legion. Despite historical complexities, originally established in 1925 by Irish World War I veterans, it actually provided crucial assistance to Irish citizens who had served in our British Armed Forces. Their presence in the Republic ensures that veterans receive access to support, but also remembrance services. And indeed, as has been mentioned, the late Group Captain John Paddy Hemingway, DFC, who passed away on St Patrick's Day, the last of the few, was actually born in Dublin in 1919 and returned to live there in 1969, and was fondly remembered by his comrades in the Royal British Legion in the Republic of Ireland. Finally, I want to pay tribute and highlight the contribution of those branches in my constituency of South Antrim, those of Antrim, of Ballyclare, of Carmoney and Glagormley, and Randallstown branches, and unfortunately the Crumlin branch, which closed recently. Those branches have not only provided welfare support to veterans and their families, but have also been instrumental in fostering that community spirit through remembrance events and indeed fundraising activities. And it's their dedication to preserving the memory of those who have served and ensuring today's veterans receive the support that they deserve is truly commendable. These local branches continue to be a pillar of strength and unity. And indeed, Sir Jeremy, with our local Randallstown branch due to celebrate its 100th anniversary on Sunday the 22nd of June with the drumhead service. So in conclusion, the Royal British Legion's contribution extends far beyond financial aid. They offer dignity, recognition and an unwavering support to those who have served, whether in Northern Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, and served within their local branches or indeed across this country. Their work remains vital, and I believe it is our duty to support and champion their efforts, ensuring that the sacrifices of our servicemen and women are never forgotten.
We have 3 speakers left. If I can ask you to limit yourselves to 2 minutes each, we'll get everybody in with the forbearance to the front benches. Amanda Martin.
Thank you, Sir Jeremy, and thank you to the honourable member from Hinckley and Bosworth for bringing this debate. In Portsmouth, the home of the Royal Navy, we know all too well the sacrifices made by our service personnel, past and present. Our city has been at the heart of British naval history for centuries, and with that comes a real deep understanding of the cost of service and the importance of remembrance every day. The Royal British Legion has stood as a steadfast supporter of the armed forces community, providing vital assistance to veterans, service personnel and their families. They have been the lifeline for thousands who have struggled with the physical, mental and financial burdens of service. Whether it's through the cost of living grants, debt advice or war pension support, the Legion has ensured that those who have served our country are not left behind. I want to take this opportunity to give a special shout out to Terry and Denise Bryant and all the poppy sellers in Pompey. I'm honoured to have sold poppies alongside them and pleased to have hosted a thank you breakfast in December for them and veterans, and honoured to have had the Minister of Defence from the other place join us. Portsmouth is not just a city of naval history, it is a city of service, with thousands of veterans active and personnel calling it home. And the work of the RBL is vital across our community. However, as the Minister will be aware, challenges remain. The Government must uphold the principles of the Armed Forces Covenant and ensure it works in modern times. It has been sat on a shelf for far too long, and it is meaning our service personnel and veterans have been let down for many hundred years.
Indra.
Lady for giving way. Does she agree with me that all councils must follow the lead of Hertfordshire County Council, which was one of the first to launch an Armed Forces Covenant?
100%, yes. It is important that public bodies must routinely identify veterans to ensure they receive the support that they need. Veterans deserve proper housing, adequate welfare support and fair and timely treatment when it comes to military compensation. And it is vital, as members of Parliament, that our door is always open to our veterans and our service personnel. Our service families, including those of non-UK personnel who serve alongside our forces, should not face unnecessary barriers when settling in the UK. In Portsmouth, we are proud of our naval heritage, but pride alone does not provide for our veterans. This is why we must continue to support the British Legion in their missions. I urge the Government to continue listening to the voices of the armed service community and ensure that the commitments we have made are followed through. And finally, Chair, I want to thank those in Portsmouth who remember every day the sacrifices of those who serve and served, not just on Remembrance Day, but as I've said, every day, and the role that our British Legion plays alongside our community.
Jacob Collier.
Thank you, Sir Jeremy. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, and I thank the honourable member for securing this debate. For over a century, the RBL has been a pillar of support for our armed forces community, serving those who have served us and ensuring that no one is left behind. The work of the RBL is deeply personal to my constituency of Burton and Uttoxeter. Our own Uttoxeter branch was established back in 1927, and it has long been a source of camaraderie, support and remembrance in our local community. In Burton, it is the veterans like Carlton Wilkin, formerly of the Mercian Regiment, who dress immaculately for every civic occasion and organise our poppy appeal. I look forward to joining them again in poppy selling later this year. The poppy appeal is not just about raising funds, and my constituents are always very generous, but it is about honouring those who have made the ultimate sacrifice. It is a testament to the unwavering commitment of RBL volunteers who dedicate their time to make a real difference to other people's lives. I grew up in a generation that remembers every day the Union flag draped coffins being unloaded on the news and paraded through Wootton Bassett. That always left a strong impression on me, and the RBL was always at the heart of giving our heroes the send-off that they deserve. Beyond the poppy appeal, I want to echo the sentiments of my honourable friend for Lichfield, and I have the honour of having the National Memorial Arboretum just outside of my constituency. And every time I visit there, I discover something new, whether a new memorial or a chance to reflect, and I would encourage everybody to take up his offer. I commend the Government for its recent commitment of £3.5 million to support military veterans facing homelessness, and as many honourable members have said, we must go further in ensuring that the Armed Forces Covenant is enshrined in law. Sir Jeremy, the Royal British Legion embodies the very best of our nation of service, sacrifice and solidarity. We owe them our gratitude, but most importantly, we owe them our continued support and action. I will always wear my poppy with pride and honour the service of those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom.
to swallow.
Thank you, Sir Jeremy. The Royal British Legion has stood as a pillar of support for our armed forces community for over a century, and I'm proud to have 2 RBL branches in my constituency. Their impact at a local level is deeply felt. The Crowthorne branch, which celebrates its 103rd anniversary this year, continues to thrive with a 600-strong membership today. The branch and its club are an important pillar of the Crowthorne community, hosting dances, quizzes and special commemorations, as well as having an active women's section. And they're also incredible fundraisers for the Poppy Appeal. Last year alone, they raised almost £40,000. And I was very pleased to visit the club on Remembrance Day last year. Meanwhile, in Bracknell, we recently celebrated the return of our RBL branch to full status after years as a community-supported branch. I understand that's virtually unheard of, and it's not been achieved for many years. This rare success demonstrates the dedication of local members who now have a permanent home at the Bracknell Bowls and Social Club. I recently joined the Bracknell branch for their regular breakfast club, and it was great to see members of all ages, including a former Gurkha and his young family. They do critical work, too, in supporting their members, particularly with mental health. One success story is that of Jack Barron, who agreed to me sharing his story here today. Jack was an existing committee member who came to RBL Bracknell for assistance and was referred to Op Courage, a free NHS mental health service for the armed forces community, and I'm delighted to say they were able to support him. The RBL is a national treasure, but it's our responsibility to ensure they're supported in their mission to serve those who have served us. And that's why I'm so proud to stand here today and offer my support for my local RBL branches.
Very much. Can I thank all colleagues for their self-discipline and cooperation and allowing me to call everyone who wanted to contribute. We now come to the front bench speeches, and we begin with the Liberal Democrat spokesperson, Helen Maguire.
Thank you, and thank you for your chairship, Sir Jeremy, and I congratulate the honourable member for Hinckley and Bosworth for securing this debate. As Defence spokesperson for the Liberal Democrats, a veteran of the Royal Military Police and someone who's worked really closely with the Royal British Legion in my community, I warmly welcome this discussion. The Royal British Legion makes a significant contribution both locally and nationally. Their crucial work supports veterans, advocates for their rights and promotes remembrance, and I'm proud that the RBL and the Liberal Democrats share many values such as fair treatment for veterans, mental health support and ensuring that the Armed Forces Covenant is properly upheld. The work of the RBL is vital. Those who have served put their lives on the line to protect the freedoms and values we cherish. Their sacrifices do not end when they leave the forces. Many veterans and service families face ongoing challenges, from physical and mental health struggles to difficulties transitioning back into civilian life. As the UK's largest armed forces charity, the RBL has 180,000 members, 110,000 volunteers and a broad network of partners and charities. It is essential that we as MPs continue to support their work. The RBL has played a fundamental role in fostering the UK's strong culture of remembrance. In 1921, they launched the first Poppy Appeal, selling 9 million poppies and raising 106,000 to support veterans of the Great War with health and housing. Over a century later, the Poppy Appeal remains a cornerstone of remembrance, raising funds for financial aid, healthcare support and transition services for veterans. The local footprint of the Royal British Legion across the country and overseas provides a tried and tested structure to help us all play our part in supporting the armed forces community every day. And this is even more important now as our serving personnel deploy on operations and prepare for an uncertain future. The RBL is both a pillar of support for the armed forces community and a guardian of our national memory. On a personal note, I was proud to take part in the RBL Cycle Challenge in November, where I was the fastest female MP, and I was happy to watch the number of MPs who eagerly took part in this challenge supporting the RBL. Many are here today. But perhaps less well known, but no less important, is the role that the RBL plays in our local communities. In my own county, Surrey, I've seen just how well the RBL helps to mobilise support across the community.
In my constituency of Doncaster East and the Isle of Axone, the RBL's integration within the local authority is massively important because they have the voice of the people that represent, their warmth and their passion, their consideration and their expertise. Would you agree with me that cooperation with local authorities in providing services around housing and financial management as well as emotional management, is massively important as we go forwards.
Yeah, it's absolutely vital, and I'm actually going to come on to that point in a moment. So, from sharing a moment of reflection in commemorating the 80th anniversary of VE Day by lighting the beacon at Ipswich Downs on the 8th of May this year, to organising the Remembrance Sunday Parade each year. So my local Epsom Newell branch raised over 79,000 during the 2024 Poppy Appeal, and this was the highest amount of any Surrey branch and the most they'd ever raised. And I extend my thanks and gratitude to the organiser, Amy Johnson, and to all those amazing volunteers who stood for hours collecting donations, of which I was proud to be a part of. There's a national shortage of volunteers like Amy, and I encourage everyone to donate their time. My local branch runs a monthly Veterans Community Hub, offering ex-service men and women a place for community and companionship. And this initiative has been a lifeline for over 30 veterans, many of whom felt isolated before attending. And I've been delighted to meet so many wonderful individuals and hear stories of their time in the armed forces. One woman who stands out to me is Mildred, who is 101 and was in the Special Operations Executive in Italy, running messages to and from the resistance on her bike. She spent her 21st birthday in a cave with other resistance fighters, and I was honoured to celebrate her 100th birthday with her at the Veterans Hub. The group, led by the incredible Barb Warwick and so many volunteers, has taken them on trips together, including a visit to D-Day Museum in Portsmouth, and participates in activities such as archery and model making. They're extremely grateful to 135 Geographic Squadron, the Royal Engineers, and Major Quintin Locke for allowing them to use their Army Reserve Centre free of charge. It's inspiring to see communities come together to support the RBL's work, but we must do more to ensure that veterans receive a fair deal. Branches like Epsom and Newell, which have worked closely with borough councils, are anxious about the transition to the unitary local government. We must ensure they continue to have opportunities to work with devolved governments under the new system. Branches also struggle with membership despite the presence of many veterans, as they are unaware of the support available to them. GPs are now pledged to support veterans in any way they can as part of the military government, and it's vital that GPs are equipped with the resources to connect veterans to the RBL and other veteran resources. Additionally, the RBL is keen to break the misconception that it primarily serves World War I and World War II veterans. It actively supports veterans from conflicts such as Falklands, Iraq and Afghanistan as well. And they're involved, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I just note when I spend time with the RBL in Tunbridge Wells that there is an age shift, that it is the old and the bold who are manning the barricades. And I'm sure many of us have seen that in our local branches. Would you join me in urging the Minister and the Government perhaps to help that linkage between service leavers now, people of our generation, we served at the same time, to connect them to the RBL in their local areas where they're going to live?
Absolutely, I totally agree with the honourable member's point. Perhaps that's something that can come up in the resettlement schemes on leaving the armed forces. So they're also involved in a number of campaigns to improve the lives of all members and veterans in the armed forces, and need our help here in Westminster. And we can start by backing the RBL's Credit Their Service campaign. This would stop military compensation from being treated as income in welfare benefits mean testing, which causes veterans and their families to lose out on thousands of pounds per year. Compensation awarded by the government for service-related injuries should not be treated differently from civil compensation awarded by courts. The current practice violates the Armed Forces Covenant, and it is time for change. Another pressing issue is the impact of welfare reforms on disabled veterans. With 1 in 5 working-age veterans living with a disability, proposed welfare changes risk making it harder for them to claim essential support. Narrower eligibility criteria for person-independent payment and changes to universal credit could negatively affect veterans with service-related conditions. Additionally, delaying access to incapacity benefit until the age of 22 could disproportionately harm young veterans, particularly early service leavers and those medically discharged. Upon leaving the armed forces, many veterans struggle with complex mental health issues. It is unacceptable that those who served our country are left suffering with depression, anxiety or PTSD with inadequate support. The new government must do more to assist these brave men and women by providing regular mental health checkups and ensuring timely access to professional help. The Liberal Democrats are committed to improving the recording of veterans' physical and mental health outcomes, including waiting times for treatment. We must also continue to combat the stigma surrounding mental health so that veterans feel able to seek the support they need. For over a century, the RBL has supported serving and ex-serving personnel and their families, yet despite these efforts, more than half of veterans have faced mental health challenges and 60% hesitate to seek support due to stigma. Organisations like the RBL play a vital role in reducing this stigma by fostering connections between veterans of different generations and shared experiences. The failure to provide a fair deal for the armed forces is not just morally wrong, it also affects recruitment and retention, leaving our country less secure. At a time when national security is increasingly under threat, we must remember the sacrifices made in military service. I'm proud of the Royal British Legion's contributions, both in Epsom and across the country. We must stand with them as they continue to support those who have sacrificed so much for us. And I hope all members here today will join me in signing up to become a member to support the Royal British Legion.
Thank you. James Cartledge.
Thank you, Sir Jeremy. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. And in a debate which is really in itself a tribute to the RBL, can I begin with a number of tributes, in particular to all colleagues who've spoken today. We've seen the House at its best with a strong cross-party consensus commemorating our veterans and, of course, paying tribute to all those who work for the RBL in the brilliant work they do for our veterans. But can I particularly pay tribute to my honourable friend for Hinckley and Bosworth? He is a GP, an MP, and today we've learnt he is the honorary president of his Hinckley Royal British Legion branch, and he's done them proud today. I think he's named pretty much all the key people and the key players, and I'm sure they'll all be getting a hard copy Hansard in the post to commemorate this debate. But as he said, of course, when we talk about the RBL, it's what they do locally that is the manifestation of that brilliant effort, that is what our constituents feel, if you like, at the coalface of their endeavour. I'm grateful for the Honourable Member for Lichfield for mentioning the National Memorial Arboretum. It's an incredible place. He asked which minister is going to do it this year. I can't help him, but I can tell him who did it last year, because I had that great privilege. And he may know that in the sort of central area of commemoration there is this, what you call an arrow slit, where the sun is meant to come through, should it be sunny in Staffordshire, to come through at 11 a.m. Well, I'm pleased to tell him it was when I was there, and it came through at 11 a.m. and was quite wonderful to behold. A very spiritual moment indeed, just as we said those magic words. So I'm grateful to him. Grateful to my honourable friend for Huntingdon for mentioning Poppy Day. I must say, very much enjoyed Poppy Day alongside the Legion, both as Minister and as Shadow Minister with our team. I didn't serve in the military, I didn't have that privilege, but I did run my own business, and I'd like to think that the sales approach when I was there was quite robust and direct in approaching members of the public, and that we achieved some pretty healthy sales outcomes. On that matter of the competitive spirit, like the Honourable Lady who speaks to Lib Dems, I also took part in the RBL Static Cycling Challenge. It was the day I was renewed as Shadow Defence Secretary from interim to, I guess, what you might call enduring, who knows, alongside my honourable friend for Rayleigh and Wickford. We had the challenge, and I just pipped him to the post, I'm pleased to say. But it highlights what a key part of the RBL of our life in Parliament. Of course, as has been said, they offer a wide range of services, locally and nationally, from care homes to debt advice. In government, we did much to support veterans. We're very proud of that. Of course, as has been said, we gave veterans a voice at the cabinet table, which was particularly passionate in the embodiment of Johnny Mercer. We also, of course, had Up Courage, supporting direct very targeted mental health services for veterans, and I may remind colleagues, employers' national insurance cut for veterans, and I hope that the Minister will confirm that that will remain in place, because as I understand at the moment it's only confirmed till 2026, so it would be good to know. But I think the most important point that my honourable friend made, who called this debate, and I hope he gets a couple of minutes at the end to respond, the most important point he made was about how we continue this great festival of remembrance as the generation that served in the Second World War passes from us. We've, of course, just been mourning the passing of the last person who served in the Battle of Britain, the last of the few, as we may say, and we have to keep that flame alive. And it's all about, I agree with the Honourable Gentleman earlier, about education, and I hope the Minister will confirm that as he works with DCMS to bring forward the details of how we will mark VE Day and VJ Day, at the heart of this will be that attempt to keep the flame of remembrance alive, because, as has been said, this is about recruitment. This is about how the public are inculcated with a sense of belief in the armed forces so that they support the taxpayers' revenue that has to go to them, and a lot more of it is going to have to because of the situation the world is in. I think there's huge consensus on this point. Finally, as I haven't had a chance to date, can I thank the Honourable and Gallant Member, the Minister, for his letter in respect of the Clono case, and we hope that we will continue to work together to stand up for our veterans, and I'm grateful to all give way right at the moment of culmination.
I thank the honourable member for giving way, and he'll not mind me name checking Portadown, Banbridge, Donaghcloney and Lurgan and Brownlow in my own constituency, who are exemplary in supporting veterans and their families, particularly those from Northern Ireland who served during the IRA terror campaign and were a human shield between good and evil, and many of whom lost their lives and were seriously injured. Would he agree with me that the RBL hierarchy in Great Britain need to recognise the sacrifice and service of those in Northern Ireland and continue to build relationships rather than maybe pull things away from Northern Ireland, because it's so important that those veterans are supported for the service that they give?
Well, I'm grateful to the Honourable Lady, and I think the key point we've heard today is how the work of the RBL across every region of England and every part of the Union, and of course that includes Northern Ireland. And yes, it's not just about the First and Second World War, it's about all those other campaigns, Operation Banner included. She makes a very good point, and very grateful for the chance to speak in this debate.
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. I'm really grateful to the honourable member for Hinckley and Bosworth for securing this debate today. And for giving honourable members the opportunity to highlight the fantastic work of the Royal British Legion and the thousands of volunteers that sit below them. I think, as the honourable member said, this is a great reflection of British politics, the amount of people we have today, the amount of mix of political parties and the unity we have for those that have served, their families, and indeed those that are still serving. It's really important to champion them. They are what stands between us and indeed tyranny, as many years ago in 1939 they demonstrated. I think it's worthwhile recognising that the RBL does a fantastic job at 3 different levels. It does an amazing job at the national level. It ties society and defence back together, perhaps where we've had a societal and defence drift more so than ever before, where many of us, our grandfathers or grandparents and mothers had served, we had an immediate connection to defence. That's not necessarily the case today. The RBL acts as a glue and a binding mechanism to pull us back together, to remember why those that serve are so important to the nation. Moreover, behind all of the big events we see, whether that's Invictus, whether that's the D-Day commemorations, whether indeed that is VE Day coming up, there's always one organisation that's absolutely central to behind it, which is, of course, the RBL, and they do so much of the heavy lifting. It's really impressive. Then at the local level, which we've heard so many amazing stories today, of individual RBL branches doing such an amazing job, not just to cohere councils and deliver support, but importantly at the personal level, to change thousands of people's lives. And I think, again, that we owe a due of gratitude to all those within the RBL.
I thank my gallant friend for giving way, and I know the Minister is aware that this summer we will mark the centenary of the War Memorial in Kirkcaldy, and that the Kirkcaldy branch of the RBLS is doing a fine job in organising a ceremony and a significant tribute that is worthy of the cause. I know the Minister is aware that he's received an invitation from me to attend that event, and I wonder if he might consider that favourably.
Absolutely. If I can be there, I definitely will, and I wouldn't miss it. I think it would be fantastic. Now, the Royal British Legion, we've mentioned a couple of times, was founded in 1921 from the merger, interestingly, of 4 ex-servicemen organisation. And I think it hasn't been mentioned in had a debate since 2013, so I would like just to reflect, well done for bringing this to the table. It's established the 2-minute silence, the poppy appeal, remembrance traditions that endure today, and importantly, they unite the nation. It's expanded its support to all of those who have served at least 7 days, adapting to each generation and the changing needs, and perhaps something I'll cover on in a second. It's now the UK's largest military charity. It has 180,000 members, 110,000 volunteers, an army in itself, and a network of partners and indeed charities. I think there's one important point here, and it was mentioned over 4 times during various speakers, about schools and making people or educating people on why remembrance is so important. And as we approach VE Day, yes, it's very important to remember the sacrifice of individuals, but also the cause of the collective. Why did they get called to the front in the first place? and that was to protect the freedoms that we all enjoy. And again, it's that underlying message that freedom is not necessarily free. And when you reflect that into the geopolitical situation of today, where, as an example, we have North Korean troops fighting on the very edge of Europe, it's probably never been so fractious. So again, really important role for RBL and various other charities of enhancing the lessons of the past and making sure the youth of the nation remember that. It's an organisation, the RBL, that makes an immeasurable contribution from remembrance and representation to service and support. It's an organisation whose iconic annual poppy appeal, which I was in London collecting for just last year, has become woven into the very fabric of our national identity. An organisation that also gives practical, life-changing support day in, day out, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Absolutely.
I thank my honourable and gallant friend for giving way. I just want to inform him briefly of a meeting I had with my local RBL in Boosbeck last week. As a result of him coming to our constituency for a discussion on veteran mental health, a local developer who saw the coverage of that visit is now converting a former disused nursing home into a specialist veteran supported living community in our constituency. So will he take this moment to commend the Castle Court Veterans Village project, and I wonder if he would like to visit.
So I absolutely support the Castle Court Veterans Village. I think it's a fantastic initiative, and I really enjoyed the visit to come up. And actually, all of the visits that I've been on, I just get the grassroots feel. When you combine that with some of the broader national priorities that we're pushing, we end up with the perfect mix of deliverables. And perhaps that's a useful opportunity to come on to the government partner, which is the Royal British Legion. It's a key partner to the government as we work to rewrite the contract between the state and those that have served, those that have served, and of course, really importantly, mentioned by my honourable friend, the families that also serve alongside them. It's been a steadfast partner of the Armed Forces Covenant throughout its creation and review, and as government has worked to extend its scope and implementation. The Royal British Legion ensures the voice of our armed forces community are heard at the highest level, helping shape the policies that affect our service personnel. The Royal British Legion runs the vitally important Battleback Military Rehabilitation Centre at Lilleshall, which supports the physical and psychological recovery of service personnel and veterans. And finally, the Royal British Legion are, of course, our Invictus Games delivery partner, and I look forward to inviting them to Birmingham in 2027. The Royal British Legion don't only partner with us, the government. They also push government and local authorities to do better. And the manifesto they published last year contained a wide range of useful recommendations to end the disadvantage faced by our armed forces community. And perhaps this is an opportunity to answer some of the questions that the honourable member mentioned earlier. Building on what the previous government have done, and I'd like to thank him also for his push for my promotion into Cabinet, but I would argue that the Right Honourable member or the Defence Secretary represents us in Cabinet. And interestingly, as pooling the Office for Veterans Affairs and the Veterans Minister in Defence, we've really tied the veterans space back into all the constituent parts in Defence that already deal with veterans activity. Individually, they were significant. Collectively, it's really powerful. So we've managed to really synthesise the support to veterans over time, and that's building and will come out in due course. Interestingly, the Office for Veterans Affairs, which was created by the previous government, is a fantastic organisation and expanding. But I would say if we look below the Office for Veterans Affairs, what sits between it and the charitable sector. It was mentioned earlier by one of the speakers, where can we help cohere and coordinate the charitable sector, build data, push down strategy, and enhance the services, not just at the national level, but indeed the local level, I think is where the sweet spot is. And as we pull the Covenant into law in 2026 and expand that duty, that will be really important because there is a requirement for education and communication on what the Covenant is and, of course, what it isn't. As mentioned by the Honourable Member, Op Courage, Op Fortitude, Op Restore and Op Ascend is probably dealing with in excess of 40,000 people across mental health, housing, musculoskeletal issues, all the way through to career transition partnership. And interestingly, statistics on career transition are 86%, circa 86% of all veterans straight into employment after the first year. And I can happily say to my the honourable member that the national insurance is still in place for the next 12 months, and I hope to extend that long into the future. On indefinite leave to remain, the availability after 5 years' service, the manifesto commitment that we've made is to reduce that to 4 years and, of course, to waive visa fees. But I'm happy to take that offline if we'd like to discuss that in more detail in due course. I'd like to give my honourable member a minute at the end, so I'll wrap up very quickly. As a veteran and as a Minister for Veterans and People, I'll do all I can to support the RBL's work, to partner with them and work collaboratively, and I trust all honourable members would like to join me in putting on the record our appreciation for all of their service, which is absolutely invaluable to not only the government but the thousands of people that serve their families and the veterans themselves.
Luke Evans to wind up in less than 30 seconds.
Let us reflect on the quiet, steadfast work of the Royal British Legion. They are a pillar of remembrance, a shield for those who served, and a voice for those who can no longer speak. And in paying tribute to them, we affirm our collective duty to support them, just as they've supported so many. We will remember them.
Very grateful to the honourable member and to all who've contributed to this understandably popular debate. The question is that this House has considered the contribution of the Royal British Legion. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Order. Order. If I can ask everyone to leave as quickly as they can so we can get on to the next debate. We've got a minister for it, but thank you very much. Thank you.
I saw it's signed.